I want one. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the show, and today we are launching the day in the saddle with, I think, one of the most anticipated motorcycles that certainly I have wanted to get out and ride, Yamaha's 2022 MT09 SP. Now, the question on everybody's mind when this thing came out is it going to be worth the upgrade over the old MT09? Is it going to solve its wonky handling? Is it going to airbrush away some of its fun character? The answer, guys, this is still the bike you want to get. But let's dive on in. Now, since this is the first time we're doing something like this, let me explain how this is going to go down. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to get this motorcycle out, and I'm going to give you my initial impressions on this. Obviously, I have ridden it in here, but I wanted to get some just raw, emotional first ride stuff for you so you guys can really see what it's all about. And then after that, we are going to dive into a little bit of specs and some of the pros and cons on this motorcycle. We're going to get out and see how it feels on the highway as a daily commuter, and then we're going to go have some fun in the twisties, and I'm going to give you my thoughts on this bike. Rounding things out here at the end, we are going to have some Discord Q&A going on with this motorcycle. If you would like to participate in stuff like that, all the links are down in the description below. Now let's get this thing out on the road and see how it feels, because I am dying to get back on this motorcycle. All right, folks, so now let's say I actually don't know what my title and thumbnail are, so I'm going to assume that I did something relatively inflammatory, something that somebody might misconstrue as clickbait. So let me just say this right out of the gate. I stand by whatever my title is because this thing is so cool. It's so cool, and I love it so much. I'm actually not joking. But before we get out on the road, let's... God, it sounds just like the old MT09. I love it. Okay. So, first thoughts as I'm turning this motorcycle around are that it is a extremely comfortable motorcycle. Very, very, very comfortable place to sit. The seat is wide and flat. The handlebars are in a great place. The tank has a great shape. It's actually a metal tank as opposed to the plastic one on the older bikes, which is super cool. I really like a metal tank. It just feels more premium to me. And oh my god, the power is so good. Oh, it's so good. Oh man, every time I've gotten on the throttle on this motorcycle, it has put a giant ear-to-ear grin on my face. Okay, it's got that same leader bike pull through the mid-range that the old MT09 had, but it just doesn't feel like it's about to rattle itself to pieces, right? So, again, this is my initial impressions, so a lot of this stuff might change as I spend more time on this, put more miles down on this motorcycle. But it really feels much more composed. And I know for a fact that it's not just down to the fact that we have the Öhlins shock in the rear and the KYB shocks up here, or forks up here, rather. I know it's not that, because Ari Henning at one point famously tried to fix the old MT09. He tried to make it handle predictably, and he couldn't. No matter what he did, no matter what he tried, he couldn't get that bike to not feel wonky on the side of the tire. And wonky is not at all how I would describe this. Honestly, it gets on a line and it just holds it. It's got a death grip on whatever line you put it on. It's so nice. It's so nice. You could do some serious damage with this motorcycle. Holy cow. Now, as I'm hopping on the brakes here, dipping it into this corner, brakes are great. They feel good. They're Yamaha house calipers, which the R1 actually uses the house calipers, the base model R1. It doesn't have like crazy Brembos or anything on it, or at least the one that I rode. And it felt great. This feels great too. It's got a nice Nissan master cylinder that does good work. It does have rubber hoses, so I would imagine under like track abuse, it might start to fade on you a little bit, but for a normal rider, you know, doing your weekend twisties like this is, the braking system is perfectly adequate. Now, I have been playing with this motorcycle solely in the full power mode, and it's not all sunshine and rainbows, which is actually a good thing. I don't like it when a motorcycle's perfect. I like there to be some flaws. So what flaws have I found so far? First of all, herky jerky on-off throttle. It's a herky jerky boy in first gear, and first gear is actually quite tall, which is fun. I like tall first gears, but on-off throttle. Let me see if I can show you. Maybe you can hear it. Yeah, it's definitely. I'm just turning the throttle on. It's got this like light switch quality to it. Very reminiscent of the old MT09. Not a particularly confidence-inspiring throttle when you try to open it in first gear around a corner. Whee! Hovering the front wheel there. Oh man, guys, this thing is so much fun. It's so much fun. It's so composed. Oh, it's so composed. I can't believe how good the frame is on this thing now. The twin spar frame, I was actually standing there getting my gear on after I filmed the first piece to camera, and I was looking at it, and I, honest to God, said out loud to myself, standing by myself with nothing but the motorcycle for company, that looks like a super sport frame. It honestly reminds me of what you would see on a 600 or a liter bike. It's a beefy boy of a frame, and you really feel the difference. You really feel the difference. It's so nice. I would reckon that even the base model MT09, the non-SP version, which I don't think you should get, I think you should just go straight for the SP because it's got all the fun stuff. But the base model has this new frame. I would reckon it handles every bit as good as this thing does. For the average rider, you don't need to get an Öhlins rear shock. Oh my God, is it an extra mega flex, but oh, it's just, this thing is so good. Oh, the package is so good. Last thing I want to talk about, quick shifter. Quick shift feel is awesome. It's one of those things where if you have everything else good but a pretty crummy quick shifter like what's on the SMCR, it can kind of detract from the feel. I actually don't use the quick shift up on the SMCR. I only use the auto blipper because the quick shifter just doesn't feel that good. There's something about the play in it that I don't love. This thing is just, it's lightning fast. The interrupt sounds great. Downshifts feel excellent. This is a very complete package, and I am thoroughly surprised by how much I'm enjoying this, because the MT09, the base MT09 was one of those bikes where I was like, yes, this is a fun motorcycle. I totally get it. I'm having a good time. But it was deeply flawed. This still has a lot of the quirks and goofy character of the MT09 while also being pulled together, and I love that. Oh my God, I love that. So guys, that gives you an idea of where I'm at with this bike after my first ride. Obviously, very glowing on this bike. It's feeling phenomenal, but let's pull it over and let's go over some of the specs and some of the good stuff and the bad stuff that I've found already on this motorcycle, and see if there's something more under the skin here before we get it out and see what it's like as a commuter. Now, I wanted to wait on doing the specs just a little bit because I think that the specs aren't super duper important on a motorcycle. I did want to give them to you, but I think my first impressions are more important when not colored by specs. I actually didn't look up the specs on this motorcycle until I pulled over and set up the camera. So this motorcycle is packing an 889cc inline triple, which is bigger than the old 847. I'm assuming that is down to emissions so that they could get the engine displacement up and keep the horsepower about the same, because it is making 117 horsepower and 69 foot-pounds of torque. Nice. This bike is weighing in at 420 pounds, which is really nice and light for a motorcycle. Worth pointing out, this motorcycle does have fully adjustable KYB front forks and a fully adjustable Öhlins shock in the back. This is a really upmarket package with the TFT dash. It's got Nissin brakes, but they work really well. These are the Yamaha house calipers. Honestly though, guys, I think the standout feature for this motorcycle is its new frame. I think you can talk about all of the changes that happened to this motorcycle, but if you don't mention the frame, you're doing this bike a disservice, because the frame is what's really transforming this motorcycle's package from the wonky, wild beast that the old MT09 was to something that's still really wild and peppy, but it doesn't feel like it's going to buck you off if you get on the gas a little too hard in a corner. Now, while we're on the side of the road here, I did want to talk about some of my favorite things and some things that bum me out a little bit because this bike isn't perfect. And I did want to start out with the biggest knock that I have, and that is that this bike still has the old MT09 snatchy throttle, baby. This throttle on this bike, it's very when you're getting on it in first gear. It's a little bit better in second and third. You don't notice it much fourth and up. And that can be a little bit of a handful, especially if you're just getting into a bike with this much power. Say you're coming from a Ninja 400 and then you hop on this thing. It could actually scare you a little bit. So that is a black mark for this motorcycle. Another thing that I don't love, I don't like the way this bike looks. I think the front end on this bike feels unfinished to me. Everything from the headstock back is great, but I don't love the headlight. I don't love the dashboard. It feels very stumpy. It feels like the front end wasn't finished. Tastes are subjective, so some people really like it, but it's really hard for me to be like, yeah, I can totally recommend this motorcycle. It's like one of those KTM headlights. You either love it or you hate it. I do love the gas tank. This is one of those things where it's weird to mention it, but that is a big metal gas tank. I love metal gas tanks on motorcycles. This used to have a plastic one. Could not stand that. I actually like a nice steel gas tank on a bike. It just gives me more to hold on to. It feels sturdier, makes it feel more premium, and it's really thin between the knees. It feels great on this bike. Gotta love the engine too. I mean, the way that it makes its power is just delicious. The old MT09 felt like a liter bike. This one does too. It's just this really nice feeling of rushing torque when you get on the throttle. It feels awesome. The last thing, this one's kind of a give and take, is the TFT dash. I like the technology on it. I love the cruise control. I love the up and down quick shifter. I like all of that, but I don't love the TFT because all it shows you is just, you know, the bar tack and a couple of numbers. It's, for what it is, it's very simple. And if I'm gonna get a TFT dash, I'd like it to be, you know, fancy, and I'd like it to show me all kinds of cool stuff. And this one doesn't really do that. I mean, it shows you plenty, but I don't know, it's also kind of small. But the bike is only $11,099 brand new. So, you know what? If the TFT is gonna cost me a lot more for a bigger one, then I'm okay with this. Last little quibble, the menus. They're really hard to navigate on this bike. It's just got the one scroll wheel on the right-hand cluster. And I don't know, it's not easy for me to get in and navigate. But those are little problems, guys. They're little problems. This bike is just so nice. The package feels so good. It feels so premium. And it's not the usual Yamaha thing where it feels like they borrowed a bunch of stuff from other bikes. this feels bespoke. It feels good. It feels like it was well designed, and I really, really enjoy riding it around. Speaking of which, let's get it out on the road and talk about this motorcycle as a commuter, because some folks out there, like Ben, the guy I borrowed this from, use this bike as a commuter. They're fire-breathing commuting motorcycle. Can you actually commute on something like this comfortably? Let's find out. Okie dokie pokies, not every single road is a nice, twisty, enjoyable weekend ride. Sometimes you actually have to go out and commute, and if you are going to be commuting on the MT09 SP, what is it like? Initially, when I got on this motorcycle, I thought, man, that suspension, that's pretty damn stiff. And I thought that it might actually be a bit of a negative for the bike as a commuter, because you don't really want a big stiff ride while you're, you know, just cruising down the highway. If you're going over speed bumps or whatever, cracks in the road, you know, small children, whatever you're rolling over, you don't want the suspension to be punching you in the spine. And a lot of times I look and I see an Olin suspension and I'm like, oh boy, that's probably going to be a stiff ride. However, this one's tuned really well. The guy I borrowed this from, who lent it to me for the day, a buddy of mine by the name of Ben, he rides 2-up with this. So I don't know if his preload is currently set for 2-up riding or if it's just set for him. He's smaller than I am, but he's about the same height. I would reckon he's probably 20 or 30, maybe 40 pounds lighter than I am. Probably like 20 or 30 pounds lighter than I am, because I eat a lot of cheeseburgers. But it's set pretty darn well, and this really, it's nice because a lot of times you get a bike with a suspension where if you're my size, you have to max it out to get it to be close, you know. So it's nice that you have a motorcycle here with suspension that you can just cruise with and set to sporty settings and just enjoy without it feeling like it's going to, you know, punish your taint too hard. The wind protection on this motorcycle from stock, obviously there is none. Ben has added this windscreen on it, and it feels like it's doing an okay job. I'd like to ride it without that, just to see, but I would wager that it's not amazing. It's also not going to be bad. Just standard naked bike stuff. It's really hard to get a naked bike to give you a nice clean set of air coming off of the dash. So I'm getting usual naked bike buffeting off of this. Now let's talk about the power modes on this motorcycle, because it has 4 of them. I think they're largely superfluous. Well, one is largely superfluous. So, all right, we're in 4 right now, which is rain mode. So we're going about 50 miles an hour, and that's full throttle. So very clearly artificially limited to tone the motorcycle down. It really doesn't feel good. I don't love this. I would only ever use this if I was really caught in a downpour. Even with the little light rain, I would just put it in mode 3. So let's move on up to mode 3 and talk about that one. Mode 3, this is normally what a rain mode feels like on a motorcycle. So 9 times out of 10, what rain mode does is it feels really neutered for the first half of the rev range, and then it gives you power at the top. It's exactly what 3 does here. Really mellow low down, and then right at 7,000 RPM, it's like you best hold on because it's an MT09 again, which is cool. I like that, but I wish it wasn't so artificially muted. It feels poor, very poor, until you get to 7,000. And even 7,000, you feel like it's not giving you everything. So this is really like the best commuting mode because the motorcycle is the most chill, without feeling artificially super ball gagged. Moving on up to 2, there's very little difference that I can feel between 1 and 2. I don't know if it's at the top end or if there's just like a smidgen percentile difference between 1 and 2 in the throttle mapping, but they feel very similar. And if it were me, I would either live in 1 or 3. You know, I like this bike to be full bananas because it's a stupid motorcycle. It's absolutely a stupid motorcycle. So embrace the dumb and just go with 1. But sometimes you want to actually be able to not feel like you need a cigarette after you get off the motorcycle, and so it would be nice to have the chiller power mode. So 3 is there for you, and then 4 if you're like caught in a hurricane. Otherwise it's 1 or 3. 2, again, I don't feel very much of a difference there. One thing that I do really enjoy about this motorcycle is it's got cruise control just built in. As a commuter, having cruise on your motorcycle without having to do with a throttle lock, electronic cruise control is just, it's so useful. And you think to yourself, you're like, oh, it's just like a nice feature to have. No, man, I used to think it was a nice feature, but now it's like, I have to have it. I have to have the electronic cruise control. It's just, it's so good. It's so good. It's one of those things where once you try it, there's no going back. So if you're somebody who commutes on their motorcycle and you use a throttle lock, don't try electronic cruise control until you're ready to throw down money for the bike that has it, because you're not going to want to go back. It is a little interesting on this motorcycle, now that I'm through Jonestown proper and can pick the pace back up a little bit. You have to be in 4th gear to turn it on. So in 3rd gear, it doesn't work. I think the Tuono V4 did something similar where you have to be at a certain speed or in a certain gear to turn it on. I don't understand why it can't just be in 3rd gear and turn it on, because this bike is geared so tall. But yeah, I mean, just cruising with the cruise control on, I mean, I can steer this motorcycle south of the waist and just, you know, lean into a corner and the bike does exactly what I want it to. So you could literally ride this thing with no hands with the cruise control on, which is pretty fun. It's a little bit of a challenge, and I don't recommend riding a motorcycle like that, but you know, if you're bored, you can try it out. It's kind of fun. 2 more things I want to talk about in this segment. Fuel economy. Right now at 55 miles an hour in 4th gear, I am averaging 45 miles an hour, or 45 miles to the gallon. Good luck actually getting that much gas mileage on this bike. I've torn through this tank of gas on this bike just because it's so much fun to ride. You're not gonna get 40 miles to the gallon out of this. You just aren't. If you're anything like me and you ride a motorcycle the way it's meant to be ridden, so with this bike it's like that, you're not gonna get good gas mileage. But I have a feeling, I have a sneaking suspicion that y'all aren't coming to the MT09 because of its great gas mileage. Last thing, let's talk about the seat. It's nice for like an hour. It's starting to hurt my sitting bones. I've been on this bike for about 80 miles at this point. Initially I was going to go all the way out to Fredericksburg, but I actually wanted to go to Cow Creek today, so we're heading that way. And I've just been sort of cruising on this motorcycle. I've been on it for about an hour, and my butt's starting to feel it. I'm not gonna lie. It's starting to feel the thin nature of the seat. It's nice and wide, but if this were mine, I would probably upgrade, see if Seat Concepts has something, or maybe Corbin or something like that, just because this is one of those motorcycles that I could see you doing 300 miles, 400 miles in a day on. It's really easy to ride. Really easy to ride. So with that being said, let's pull the bike over and
Let's have a little Discord Q&A segment. See if they boys over on Discord have anything they would like to ask on the lovable little MT09 SP.
Let's not do a big preamble. Let's dive right into the Discord questions. And we've got War Scribe asking right off the bat the hard-hitting questions. How many wheelies did I do? Lots. I didn't clutch them up because I don't know how to do that and I'm really bad at it. But this motorcycle, boy oh boy, does it love to power wheelie. It's power wheeling in second, definitely power wheeling in first, and I did feel it once or twice in third. This thing is a ton of fun to ride. If you enjoy wheelies, this is one of the best wheelie motorcycles out there. Ogamo asks a good one. How tall is too tall for that bike? Well, I'm in 6'4" in my boots, and I feel like I still have a little bit of room on here. So I feel like if you're 6'6", you're probably starting to push the upper limits of this bike. But because it's a naked bike, it's really open. These naked bikes, they feel really nice and wide, and the tank flutes on the side here, I don't feel like I'm crammed into it. So if you're super like mega tall, like, you know, above 6'6", you might start running into issues. But at 6'4", 240, I got a ton of room on this bike. How short is too short, Lava Melon? I would say if you're sub like 5'7", you might start running into issues. It does have a pretty tall seat height on this bike, but you can make it work a little bit more easily if you're on the shorter side than if you're too tall for the bike. Make Orange Orange asks, what do you think the nearest competitor to this bike is? Street Triple, Duke 890, or something else? Honestly, I haven't ridden the Duke 890. It's one that I really have been meaning to. So my biggest comparison goes to the Street Triple, but this feels more fun than a Street Triple. The Street Triple is so refined, it feels like you need to be wearing a suit when you're riding it. This thing feels fun and effervescent and playful in ways that the Street Triple just doesn't. This is a lot more enjoyable than the Street Triple, to me anyway. Jerd asks, how does the upsized engine feel compared to the old engine, and has the handling and feel in a corner improved on the new frame? Obviously, handling, big improvement on this new frame. Probably the biggest change on this bike. If you're used to the old MT09, I would argue that you're going to feel very little changes in the engine, very small changes in how the power is delivered, but generally feels very similar. Ooh, this one, good one. Uber Doward asks, how's the stock suspension for a big guy? Great. It's really nice on this bike for somebody who's north of 220 pounds. I'm surprised, honestly, at how good it feels. Bambi Zux asks, in your opinion, is the adjustable suspension worth the added cost? Yes, 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 1,000 times yes. If you can get an adjustable suspension, get one. Stock settings are really wonky on some bikes. Sometimes they're geared for people my size, sometimes they're geared for somebody with, like, you know, short rounds legs and LeBron James's torso. Bikes are really, really weird with stock suspension, and I highly recommend, if you can spend the cash, get the upgraded suspension. It's worth it. Harn asks, cruise control, question mark? It's got it, and it works good. So, yes, cruise control. All right, let's round this out with Expecto Delito. If you found yourself fleeing from baddies with guns on a nondescript black sport bikes, and there was an MT09, Duke 890, and a Street Triple parked nearby, which one am I stealing? Assuming your escape route is 1/3 tight quarter city riding, 1/3 dramatic bridge gunfight, and 1/3 highway escape. Honestly, I like this one. The Speed Triple, or the Street Triple rather, if I was like wearing a suit and, you know, it was all blowing away in the wind and stuff, yeah, that would be cool. But if I was actually trying to like get away from people, this is probably what I would use. The suspension feels great. The engine is really, really nice and torquey. I don't know. It would look cool though, running away from bad guys on a Duke 890 because it's all bright and orange and stuff. But that would also be easier for you to hit because you're bright orange and they can see you in the dark. So yeah, definitely this one. All right, guys, with all that being said, let's get this bike back out on the road and start rounding out my final thoughts on this thing and wrap this video up.
So let's start rounding out my thoughts here on the MT09. Obviously, I'm very enthused by this motorcycle. It is one of the bikes that I have been dying to try, and I'm so glad that I did, because this thing is just, it's chef's kiss good, guys. It's so much fun. But let's be realistic about this motorcycle. Let's say you are the kind of guy or gal out there who is getting into motorcycles and they've got room for one bike in the garage, and you are looking for that middleweight motorcycle. You have the experience requisite to make it work, and let's say you're looking and let's say you're looking for that bike that is your do-it-all. It's your track bike, it's your weekend roadster, it is your, I go on trips and sometimes moto camp with this thing. Is this the bike to get that job done? You know what? Yeah, I think it really is. It's a really nice jack-of-all-trades motorcycle, but it's not like the old MT09 where it was a master of none. This bike is actually a really good package. The suspension is sophisticated, the frame is up to date, the technology is good without being overbearing, and cruise control, oh my god, having cruise control on this thing is so nice. You know, I think a lot of people look at bikes that are making, you know, 120-ish horsepower, and they might be, you know, thinking, well, you know, it's $11,099. If I go for like 15 grand, I can get a Tuono. And wouldn't I have so much more fun on the Tuono? You know, it's not the factory, but it's still got fully adjustable suspension, and it's got 170 horsepower, and you know, it's got a touring mode in it, so it's kind of chill, right? No. I've ridden the Tuono, I've ridden the Street Fighter V4S, I've ridden the Super Duke. Honestly, I've even ridden the MT10. If you are a street rider, if you're primarily a street rider and you occasionally go to a racetrack and you do some big miles, and you use it occasionally to go to the office, you know, it's just your all-around motorcycle, you don't want that much power. It's a lot to deal with. It's exhausting sometimes even to have that much power on tap. The MT09, it's got a good mix of usable power and unusable power. You know, if you're chill with the throttle, you know, it accelerates kind of nice. It's just sort of easy to get along with. But then, you know, when you get through a corner and you want to start standing it up, it'll scream all day. And it's got the tech and the sophistication in the build to back it up. It doesn't feel like this raucous ride. So I really do think it's better than the Hyper Nakeds, but is it better than the other motorcycles in its category? Well, it's definitely better than the Z900. For sure. Way better than the Z900. I personally have not ridden a Duke 890, so I can't speak to that, but I have heard that the 890 is lighter, it's making similar power, it's just an absolute wheelie monster, and it's got the parallel twin with the 270 crank, so it's one of those where I could see that being a real contender. That sounds like a great mix. But it's kind of, you know, you gotta like the Kiska style, the KTM style. Now, the Street Triple. That's the elephant in the room when it comes to this one. The Street Triple is a sophisticated and elegant motorcycle. I am comfortable saying that. It is truly a buttoned up, quality piece of motorcycling. The engine is great. The torque curve is velvety smooth. The whole package is just genuinely nice, and it's worth every ounce of its purchase price. However, I do think that in all that sophistication, Triumph have removed a little bit of the fun factor. It doesn't have the hooligan energy that this does. I really like my bikes to have a lot of personality, and the MT09 has it in spades. It really does. It's just, you know, it doesn't have the old backyard build quality that the old MT09 did. But this thing is like, you know, it eggs you on, like poking you with a stick, being like, come on, let's go have some fun. It's a lot of fun to ride this thing, and the Street Triple doesn't really do that. And I kind of want my motorcycle, if I'm gonna buy a silly torque monster bike like this, I want my motorcycle to be encouraging a little bit of bad behavior. And for the first time, I think the MT09 can actually hold a candle to the Street Triple in a corner. I really do. Obviously, I haven't tested this at the limit. I've just tested it as a street rider. But, you know, this has done everything that a Street Triple's done. And it's a lot cheaper. And, I don't know, it's really fun. It's really fun. So much so, guys, that I honestly, you might see me trading the SMCR in for one of these. I really could see myself owning this instead of the SMCR. It's got a lot more of the kind of energy that I need for my daily riding than the SMCR does. Don't get me wrong, I still love the SMCR, but this is just an excellent package. So, how am I going to rate these motorcycles? Back in the day, I used to give you wonky, useless numbers because numbers at the end of reviews are always kind of silly to me. But I am going to give you, you know, just a fun giggle factor on this, and it is extremely high. This motorcycle is one of the most fun bikes that I've ridden. It makes me happy to twist the throttle. This is a motorcycle that is just, it's all about having a good time and giving you the tech and the sophistication to have that good time however you want. Whether it's around a back roads corner like this or around a racetrack. The MT09 SP, it's there for you. And for $11,099, and I'm here for that too, honestly. So guys, that is going to wrap this video up. If you enjoyed it, click the links down in the description below. Remember to subscribe to the channel. It's one of the easiest ways you can help the channel grow. And if you would like to support us on a more intimate scale, shall we say, you can check out the Patreon down below and hang out with us in the Discord. It's how you're going to be able to access the Q&As for future Day in the Saddles. And until the next one, I'll catch you guys later.